The taller the hair, the more we care. Hi, cousins. I'm Shemaya. It's like papaya, except it's not. And this is Plot Twist Please. Welcome to not my humble abode, because my internet was being kind of janky and I wanted it to be a really good video for y'all. So I'm in a different space. But don't we love how the wall is matching the branding? Don't we love how the teal branding is consistent? Mwah. Ooh, yo, I done forgot my intro. Welcome to my channel where I'm wearing all denim. I've changed this intro like 5 times and I can't remember the one that I settled on, y'all. If you're new to this channel, this is a place where I like to use pop culture in order to make our brains a little cozier. Now that's media literacy, that's neurodivergence, that's mental health advocacy, and that's community wellness from an anti-oppressive lens. Now that's a lot of stuff. Them a lot of buzzwords. But basically, all I'm trying to do here is create an environment where we can grow as humans while not knocking other people in the head during that process, especially if those people are more marginalized than us. Okay? Okay. Hey, you probably don't know that I drink a lot of water, but what I've realized recently is that, you know, those attachments to your water faucet, what other kind of faucet you got? Filters you put on those? They actually do filter out the minerals that can actually help your body. You know, the water itself isn't as nutritious when all those minerals are filtered out. Plus, I be dehydrated. Since recently becoming a gym girly, I've been relying on liquid IV to keep me alive. Here's me in a workout outfit just to prove that I work out. Even if you don't work out, the flavors, scrumdiddly yum yum, really tasty. Like Kool-Aid for adults. Use the code at the bottom of your screen for 20% off. And if you're not reading this right now, it's Shemaya Moody, first and last name. Anyway, back to that other girl. Shoo, thanks for bearing with me. Business Shemaya is a trip. So annoying. Anyway, let's get into it. So there seem to be several misconceptions out here about autism, the tism that I have, autism, and I'm here to dispute some of it with the help of people with a lot more degrees than me. So let's debunk or prove true some ideas about autism. Now let's start light. 1. Autism is caused by vaccines. You know what causes it? Peanut butter, watching Doctor Who, looking at the color orange for too long. Yeah, it's tragic. Okay, that was the warm-up. I was just checking the temperature over there on that side of the screen. If you knew immediately that I was kidding, then you're in the right place. Second idea, autism is becoming a popular diagnosis. I can't really stand the idea that autism becoming a more common diagnosis is a bad thing. Because essentially what's going on is more people are talking about their experiences with autism on the internet. And when more people talk about their unique experiences about autism, other people who have these devices watch and listen to and relate to those experiences. Now, if you are someone who watches and listens to someone talking about their experience as an autistic person, either growing up or in their current state of life, and you relate to that, that definitely gives cause for deeper investigation. Now, if someone is coming online without any degrees, without having done any deep research on autism and is just spewing nonsense, like that's one thing. On my feed, at least in terms of what comes across my For You page, a lot of the people talking about their experiences as autistic people are coming with research and are coming with many, many years of therapy under their belt. There is a lot that you can learn in therapy about yourself, especially if you are someone who likes to back up those observations with research. When I found out I was autistic, I didn't know that there was a huge, I guess, market is a weird word for it, but I didn't realize that there were people online talking about their autistic experiences. I was just like in the middle of Christmas break and bored and was going through something and needed to put something out into the world in what I felt was a little private diary, but actually ended up being a place where lots of people could cross paths and, you know, transfer ideas from one person to another. But I really didn't view the medium that I used as that kind of tool until much later. If you don't know, I got my start on TikTok talking about my autistic experiences. And then I did this series called Is It Representation or Is It Inspiration? I can't say that word on YouTube because it'll, you know, they'll be coming at me, little bots trying to punish me. But anywho, I'm just using that word, but you know what I mean. That's where I got my start on the interwebs. And so I do think at least there should be a place, there should be a space where people go online, see people who have similar experiences to them, and be able to expand their minds based on these experiences that they would have otherwise thought were completely singular and individualized. It's nice to go online and know that you have a community of people who are experiencing similar things that you are. And it can actually save someone's life too. Autism increases the likeliness for someone to take their own life. It increases the likeliness for someone to experience depression, anxiety, for them to be unemployed, to have other mental disorders, for them to have other mental illnesses. And knowing that there is a place for you to exist can make a huge difference on the quality of life that you have. For me in particular, it happened in many ways. I was listening back to this video to just check the audio, and I'm so glad I did because, girl, I was yelling in this microphone. Like I was trying to find my kid in the supermarket. It was, I'm so sorry. I really do have a stage voice, and I forget that when a mic is here, that I don't have to yell. Actually, you're welcome. So, another aspect of this argument that people are becoming autistic everywhere, quote unquote, or people are claiming that they're autistic everywhere, that irks me is that people almost make this statement or this accusation as if to allude to someone faking a diagnosis for fame or for attention. And it is extremely dangerous, one, to assume that someone is claiming to have a disability for attention, because it makes people who have disabilities less likely to be believed, or and when they communicate discomfort or pain or disenfranchisement, especially when you're communicating that to an established entity like an institution, like when you are asking for accommodations from an institution like a school or a workplace, that just makes those situations more difficult for the disabled person to navigate. And it makes it so that people don't believe disabled people when they say, hey, this thing you're doing actually hurts me, or this thing you're doing actually harms me. Like, I guess you can kind of see why that would be wrong. I guess you could see how that could be harmful, right? And also, as someone who is both a disabled person and had a disabled parent, I can attest firsthand, I guess secondhand, to experiencing or witnessing someone minimizing a disabled person's pain or claiming that somebody is faking for attention. Even and if you think it's just big institutions, it's family members too. It's loved ones too. And a lot of that, I think, specifically in racial minority or ethnic minority communities, I think there is some education that needs to happen, or may I say, re-education that needs to happen as it pertains to disability, as it pertains to neurodivergence and mental health. There's this idea in a lot of ethnic minority communities that you have to just muscle through it. And if you don't muscle through it, then you're not as strong as your ancestors, right? Or you're a wimp or you're weak. When you shouldn't have to muscle through a disability. Nah, you could keep that. That's a huge area of friction within a lot of ethnic minority communities when it comes to disability, because some people will even interpret you asking for accommodations as a minority as selfishness or as self-centeredness or as not being community minded. See, that's when the whole balance between community and individualism when it comes to wellness kind of gets a little squishy, because it's honestly, I feel like, a constant battle, a constant balancing act to pursue wellness in a community while also advocating for your own individual needs. When you layer on disability and neurodivergence, it's just a whole basket of fun. Yeah, so that being said, it is just very strange to me when people are accusing those speaking up in need of accommodations for their disability of faking it. It's extremely harmful. America has not had a good track record when it comes to disability, when it comes to mental health. And misdiagnoses happen all the time. Our history of, oh God, what is it? Those like mental health centers, like the names escape me, but it's like the place you send someone, maybe they're experiencing psychosis or something, and you send them to like this facility. Gross history. So much mistreatment. Gross. So yeah, not the cutest, tidiest history there in America of dealing with mental health, but that's why everything to me traces back to that. How you react when someone says, "Hey, I need accommodations in order to do my job well." It's all tracing back to our history of treating people with disabilities like dirt, or like they are less human or less valuable in society, when so many amazing contributions in society have been made by disabled people. And the other reason why I don't understand that accusation of faking disability for attention, particularly on social media, is because it's based on an assumption that you gain something from admitting on social media that you're autistic. Now, granted, I gained a lot from that. That was my experience. But there are also people who are mean and rude and ableist to me online. There are things that I have revealed about myself that could cost me a job. Yes, that I'm sure have cost me jobs. I'm sure. You'd be surprised by how uncomfortable some people are with disability or with someone's admittance of a disability. But even that aside, I think there's a misconception that people like autistic people when generally, especially if you are an adult and don't have the cuteness factor, people hate you. People hate autistic people. You're not guaranteed a fan club when you come online and say I'm autistic. In fact, you're guaranteeing haters. You're guaranteeing that someone is going to use that information against you to bully you or to dox you or to not give you a job or to demote you, you know? You're risking something coming online and saying you're autistic. I'm risking something right now, as I have for the past few years. I'm grateful that the pros have outweighed the cons for me in my particular situation, but it's not like that for everybody. And there's no guarantee that it's even going to mirror that in the slightest. All right, I spent a lot of time on that one, so let's move on. Moving on. So, the third idea I'm going to debate is that autism is an excuse for infringing on personal boundaries. Now, I am someone who's always advocating for assuming best intentions because you just don't know what someone's going through mentally. Like, you do not know what people, like, what tools people have access to or what ingredients people are used to using. Like, you know what I'm saying? You smell what I'm cooking. So I'm always, if someone makes me uncomfortable in a public space or in a private space, I'm always going to assume Shamaya, I'm always going to assume that there's information that I don't know about them, that I may not ever know about them. And I try to act accordingly with the utmost compassion. Do I do that perfectly every time? Of course not, but talk about that later. I hold firmly to the idea that everyone is allowed to have boundaries, no matter how stupid, no matter how seemingly minuscule, everyone is allowed to have boundaries and everyone is allowed to have those boundaries respected. Now, some people do use boundaries as a weapon. I'm not talking about those people. I still think those boundaries should be respected, but I also feel like that's not my circus. If someone is setting a boundary with you to avoid accountability, at that point, it's just not your circus. But I do not advocate for letting people, quote unquote, off the hook when they infringe on other people's boundaries or when they purposefully push against someone's boundaries or completely obliterate them, completely just skate past them, even if they're autistic. There are some autistic people who have come under fire in recent years, particularly autistic men. They have infringed on other women online's personal boundaries and have chalked it up to, I didn't know, when it was clear that they had known prior what the boundaries were, and they just purposefully skated past them. Yeah, this stuff became known really publicly when those creators, those women creators whose boundaries were infringed on, came out publicly and were saying that these people were harassing them. And I think the autistic community online as a collective had to have a moment where we decided that we were going to listen to victims. We decided that if that is the philosophy, if that is what we're going to operate under, then that has to be true, even if the perpetrators are autistic, even if the perpetrators are neurodivergent, or maybe, quote, didn't know, someone's boundaries were still crossed and someone still felt unsafe. Now, that is a weird conversation to have as an autistic person who is used to interacting with people who do not communicate their boundaries. But I think the thing that we have to hold on to, the thing that has to be consistent is when somebody crosses your boundaries, you are allowed to be upset. You are allowed to hold that person accountable or try to, and you are also allowed to separate yourself from that person. I also think that it is kind of silly. And I'm not talking about this situation. I'm not talking about harassment. I'm not talking about this situation in particular at all. But on separate occasions, I think that it needs to be acknowledged that when someone does not communicate their boundaries, to be upset that someone has crossed that boundary is a little silly. A creator talks about it in this video that I'm linking below really extensively and I think really well. But anyone is allowed to have a boundary and you're allowed to have whatever boundary you want. When someone crosses that boundary, you are allowed to remove yourself. But if you do not communicate that boundary, then the person doesn't know the boundary exists. And that might seem self explanatory, but as someone who interacts with a lot of autistic people, it's not a common understanding. It's not. And I think as an autistic person, I've just decided that, like, unless it's an authentic yes, it's a no. Because, first of all, I don't want to be caught in any mess. And second of all, I don't want my feelings hurt. So if someone isn't actively reaching out to me or actively trying to make time for me or ask me to spend time with them, like, I'm not engaging because I just have seen it all. I think everybody's different. Everyone's needs are different. Some people feel differently about how much time they're willing to spend around other people, but as an extroverted autistic, I have to be very hyper vigilant about how I approach my interactions with other people. Okay, the other thing that I want to debate is autism is best represented by movies like Rain Man. Girl, sister girlfriend. I could make an entire video on this and I probably will. So stay tuned. But Rain Man was a movie that depicted an autistic character who was not played by an autistic person. Like, it was almost as if the movie was written to make the audience feel sorry for everyone who cared for and about the autistic person. And there is a conversation to be had about, like, the weight that caregivers have to carry. But it's almost like every single kind of representation you saw during that time period, when it came to disabilities, when it came to autism specifically, was the same narrative. It was, oh, I feel so bad for anyone who has to care for or about an autistic person. And imagine how we fail. The last thing I'm going to talk about is the idea that autism is a fun character trait. People who view autism as like a quirky trait and not a disability probably don't know any autistic people or don't have a really close relationship with any of them. I don't fault people who are autistic and who deal with the struggles of autism every day for going online and displaying only the quirky parts, because sometimes the actual hard parts are too painful. And I don't think that you are required as a disabled content creator to reveal every negative aspect of your disability. But yeah, that's just my take. So that's all. I mean, stay safe out here, folks. Eat your fruits and veggies. Oh, one more thing. I have a shop, an Etsy shop. Stickers, prints. Support me if you wanna. Thank you. And stay weird. I mean it. Don't make me come out of the screen.